Viper has been one of the main agents in VALORANT that has not seen enough love from the community. Despite many buffs and much focus into improvements into her kit, she has been seeing very little play in both the solo queue and competitive scenes. She's also my favorite agent because of how unique her kit is compared to the rest of the agents in the game. It feels especially good for me to outplay on Viper because when you do make these plays, you honestly just feel like your brain is bigger. Unlike some agents in the game, Viper's abilities are not self-sufficient. They entirely supplement her gunplay and still require the Viper player to very actively think about her positioning, the level of vision control she has, and heavily predict what your enemy can see and can think about in order to succeed. This untapped potential that I see in this agent in general and the upside that she can have in games makes her so addicting. Today, I want to share a little bit of this with you and show you why Viper is the key to solving the current meta and why the buffs to her make her an insane pick you should adapt in your own games. What's going on, gamers? It's Quatch Daddy here, back with some more in-depth analysis so you can suck just a little bit less. Make sure to sub and hit the notification bell if you want to see more content like this, and let me know in the comments if there's anything you want to see more covered. If you're familiar with the current state of the meta, a lot of VALORANT players are currently facing an issue with the operator. The gun has been found to make many players struggle to break through choke points in the game, especially on maps with a lot of longer angles such as bind or ascent. This, combined with the lack of utility in the game to counter people using the gun, basically has forced teams to try and adapt in kind of scuffed ways. This is why we've seen the rise of Omen in professional play due to his reusable smokes that constantly cover angles where people might be using an up, because there really isn't much more we can do in the current state of the game. This is where I disagree with the current outset. Viper can not only be a great substitute to Omen, she can arguably exceed any agent currently in the game in terms of answering the operator meta. Viper's consistent and massive amount of vision control in the game allow her to shut down many of these operator angles with ease, and allow her to do it throughout the entire round. In this sense, this also allows teams that utilize a Viper to take their time trying to break down enemy operators and burning utility to truly find their best way of attack. Compared to other smoking agents in the game, mainly being Omen and Brimstone, Viper can provide the most amount of vision blocking capability and at the least amount of cost to your team. Thanks to her toxic bar mechanic, she can constantly be enabled to suppress enemy angles at the click of a button and can exert a huge amount of pressure onto opponents. She can also pressure entire sites by herself by using her vision control, which makes her an amazing but undervalued lurker. Many people misinterpret Viper as someone that has to be with her team at all times, but that's not always the case. Again, Viper can draw incredible amounts of pressure because her abilities can give the impression that you need her team to make her work. Although I agree that a team can make great use of her kit, that doesn't mean that she can't do work on her own. As a unique entry in the controller class, Viper can mind game your opponents so hard with the amount of deception she can introduce, to a point where people can actually look stupid in front of you. If you want to flex your galaxy brain, there is no other agent that can do this better than Viper. I'm going to discuss examples of this with her kit in certain situations, but I genuinely believe that the true talent of this agent is still relatively untapped. I will also touch on why buffs to her make her so potent now. Many players have not put enough faith in this agent yet, and I'll be waiting for the day that her true potential will be shown. Firstly, let's talk about probably the most practical and useful change to her kit, and this is the removal of the penalty for using both her toxic screen and poison cloud at the same time. These are the main vision blocking tools available in her kit and are what make her so effective in being able to shut out enemy vision. To those who aren't too familiar with what they've changed to Viper in this aspect, this basically means that Viper is now rewarded for having both her curtain and her smoke out at the same time, as you are essentially getting more value out of each of these abilities for basically the same cost as before. This change introduces so much more pressure coming out from Viper's kit because it allows her to block more areas of the map at her own will and without much cost at all. Not only that, she can put this amount of pressure constantly throughout the round, and this therefore can consistently make enemies second guess where she and her team may be. You can use this to smoke off many choke points in the game and sometimes essentially cut the map in half, create new entryways for your team to clear a site, or even smoke off an entire site by yourself. The best thing is that committing to the smokes is completely optional on this agent, as you can activate and reactivate her wall from any point on the map. This further reinforces her ability to deceive opponents on the map as well. The next great thing that Riot has changed with Viper, and is in my opinion my favorite change overall, is the buffs to her pit. Viper's ultimate is extremely unique and creates post-plant scenarios that I have never imagined seeing before from the genre. Unfortunately for her, the way that the overall gameplay in Valorant works now did not do her any favors, as many agents such as Reyna, Raze, and Brimstone are able to answer her easily. But now with the buffs to her decay mechanic and her increased ability to maneuver outside of her pit, she has so much more opportunity to outplay opponents, and players are not yet recognizing this potential out of her. For context, enemies that are stuck within her pit now maintain their decayed health for an entire 2.5 seconds once they leave any of Viper's smokes, and they also decay 50% faster now too. This brings the decay mechanic from being essentially useless to actually being an incredibly potent threat, making it easy to punish enemies who think they can simply push through her smokes. In addition, the amount of time that Viper can be outside of her pit was increased from 5 seconds to a massive 15, meaning that she can spend very long periods of time outside of the pit now, giving her so much flexibility to mind game her enemies and create crazy off angles for herself. The best thing about this is that it just makes Viper that much more enjoyable to play and makes you feel less tied to her pit when she drops it. The icing on the cake for this is the mini-map blocking feature that the pit now has, so it is much harder for your team to really deduce where Viper is within her pit without pinpoint accuracy callouts. Of course, we can't forget about the vulnerability mechanic on her snakebite, which synergizes with some of the other components in her kit, and when combined with the rest of the decay in her kit, there can be a lot of scenarios where you one-shot opponents to the chest just because of how much of the enemy's health you are sipping down over time, and it opens up the potential for some disgusting mowdowns. Overall, Viper is genuinely in a state to potentially change and answer the issues that exist in the current metagame, but people are not taking advantage of that capability. The agent has definitely been unloved ever since Valorant has launched, and I hope that with the recent changes, this gives her enough power to compete with the most popular agents right now. Now that I've marketed this agent for you, however, please make sure to all play Viper in your own games and run it down so that I can look dumb. All jokes aside though, I hope this sheds some light on the current metagame and potentially how the problem isn't the meta itself, but the players refusing to adapt to it. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk, and stay fresh, brothers.